Have you ever felt like your thoughts go way deeper than the conversations around you? Like you're carrying a mind wired for depth in a world that runs on autopilot? Here's the thing. You're not imagining it. The more you think, the more alone it can feel. Not because you're wrong, but because most people aren't wired to go there. Society doesn't exactly roll out the red carpet for people who question everything. You ask real questions, and people act like you've said something offensive. You see patterns no one else talks about, and they either ignore you or label you too intense. But what if the problem isn't you? What if there's a way to use that depth, to turn what isolates you into something that empowers you? Because in this video, we're not just talking about why deep thinkers feel like outsiders. We're talking about how to bridge the gap, how to thrive, connect, and even succeed without losing your mind or dumbing yourself down. If you've ever felt like you're living in the wrong era, or like your thoughts are too heavy for the room, stick around. You're not alone, and you're definitely not broken. Not everyone is meant to get you. And honestly, that's one of the most freeing things you can realize as a deep thinker. See, the mistake most thoughtful people make is assuming that their insights will resonate with everyone, or worse, that they should. But the truth is, depth is not always welcomed in every room. Trying to explain complex ideas to someone who just wants small talk is like trying to plant an oak tree in concrete. It's not about arrogance or being too smart. It's about alignment. The world is full of noise, but if you look closely, there are quiet corners where meaningful conversations are actually happening. You don't need a massive audience. You just need the right one. The internet makes this easier than ever. You can find spaces where your way of thinking isn't seen as weird. It's seen as necessary. Niche podcasts, curated newsletters, private forums, long-form YouTube channels, subreddits dedicated to existential thought, Discord groups full of creatives, even the comments sections under lectures and interviews. These are the new age coffee houses for modern thinkers. You'd be surprised how many people feel exactly like you. They've just stopped saying it out loud. Instead of trying to blend in with the loudest voices in the room, start listening for the quiet ones that actually speak your language. It's not about shrinking yourself to fit. It's about shifting your energy toward those who already get it. Research actually backs this up too. Psychologists call it the similarity attraction effect. People naturally bond with others who think like them. Not just on surface stuff, but deep values and worldview. And then there's Dunbar's number, this idea from anthropology that we're only capable of maintaining around 150 meaningful social relationships. You don't need thousands of people to resonate with your ideas. You just need a tribe of people who see you. And when you find those people, whether it's a thoughtful book club, a writing group, a subreddit on ancient philosophy, or even one person who loves the same obscure thinker you do, that's where your thoughts will finally land and grow. So don't waste your energy trying to plant wisdom in places that aren't fertile. Save your best thoughts for the people who are ready for them. Because they're out there, and they're probably waiting for someone like you to speak first. Here's the thing about deep thinkers. Your ideas aren't the problem, it's how you're delivering them. Most of the time, people don't reject depth because it's wrong. They reject it because it's heavy, confusing, or just feels like too much at once. That's where the art of translation comes in. You have to learn how to make the complex feel familiar without watering it down. Think of it like being bilingual. You can still speak your native language of nuance and abstraction, but you also need to be fluent in the language most people understand. Stories, analogies, and relatable metaphors. This isn't about dumbing yourself down. It's about connecting. You ever meet someone who talks about really complicated stuff, but somehow it just makes sense? That's not magic. That's intention. Take someone like James Clear. He's talking about habit formation, which could get really technical and dull fast. But he uses super simple metaphors like casting votes for the type of person you want to become. Instantly clear. Instantly sticky. Or look at someone like Lex Fridman. His interviews touch on physics, AI, philosophy, but he speaks slowly, asks human questions, and doesn't overload you with jargon. That's how depth becomes digestible. It's about structure. When you're sharing a deep idea, you start with what people already understand, then gently pull them into what they don't. Like saying, you know how your phone feels weird in your hand when it's missing a case? That's how the brain reacts to missing structure in your habits. Suddenly, the abstract becomes concrete. There's a real psychological reason this works too. It's called the curse of knowledge. Once you know something deeply, it's incredibly hard to imagine not knowing it. That's why most smart people struggle to explain their thoughts. They forget how confusing it was before it made sense. But if you can remember that feeling and build a bridge back to it, people will actually start to listen. Layer your ideas. Tell a story. Use a reference point. Drop the insight when they're leaning in, not when you're trying to prove a point. Depth isn't powerful if it doesn't land. And here's another trick. Pay attention to rhythm. Humans process information in chunks, so if you talk nonstop for 10 minutes about existential dread, you'll lose them. But if you take a moment, pause, use silence, or drop in a question that makes them reflect, you're now inviting them into the thought instead of throwing it at them. Some of the deepest thinkers in history weren't just smart, they were storytellers. They knew how to wrap big ideas in small packages. So don't be afraid to repackage your thoughts. Say the same thing 3 different ways if you have to. Use a movie scene, a childhood memory, or a visual metaphor. You're not compromising your depth. You're extending it further. Because the goal isn't to sound smart. The goal is to make people feel smart for understanding you. That's the kind of communication that sticks. Most deep thinkers fall into the trap of thinking conversation is the only way to share their ideas. But some of the most powerful expressions of depth don't happen through talking at all. They happen through creating. If you're constantly feeling misunderstood, maybe it's time to stop trying to explain everything and start building something instead. Your thoughts are like raw material. They're not meant to just sit in your head or be debated at dinner tables. They're meant to be shaped into something tangible. A piece of writing, a podcast, a design, a short film, an app, a body of work that carries your depth even when you're not around to explain it. The world may resist deep thinkers in conversation, but it pays attention to what they produce. Take Haruki Murakami, for example. He's an introvert who rarely gives interviews, but his novels explore loneliness, time, and memory in ways that connect with millions. Or Jaron Lanier, a computer scientist and musician who quietly helped pioneer virtual reality, but also writes essays that challenge the ethics of digital life. These are people who didn't shout their thoughts into the void. They turned them into something. And when you do that, when you create, you stop waiting for permission to be understood. You build your own platform. There's also something deeply therapeutic about turning thoughts into output. Psychologist James Pennebaker's work shows that expressive writing literally helps you process emotions, clarify thoughts, and reduce stress. Creation doesn't just help others, it grounds you. It takes all that mental noise and gives it shape, structure, and direction. And maybe the best part? It lasts. Conversations disappear, reels get swiped past. But that essay you wrote, that song you recorded, that article you published, those live on. They find the right people at the right time. They create a ripple effect. You don't need millions of followers. You just need to put something real out there. Something that reflects how you see the world. And guess what? When people engage with your work, they're engaging with your mind. You get to skip the surface-level chatter and jump straight to what matters. So if you're tired of being the quiet one in loud rooms, try building something that speaks for you. Let your work do the talking. And in that process, you'll not only feel more understood, you'll feel more fulfilled, because now your ideas have a life of their own. Here's the part most deep thinkers overlook. Not every space is designed for depth, and that's okay. You don't have to reveal your entire worldview in every conversation. You just have to learn how to navigate the surface without losing what's underneath. It's not about being fake, it's about being strategic. Social intelligence isn't the opposite of depth, it's what helps depth survive in environments that aren't built for it. And if you're someone who sees the flaws in systems, the illusions in status games, the emptiness in small talk, that can get exhausting fast. But here's the key. You don't always have to challenge it. Sometimes, the most powerful move is to observe, play the role, and speak only when it actually counts. Think of it like code switching, not in terms of identity, but in communication style. You can speak the language of the room without abandoning your inner dialogue. You can participate in a light conversation while still holding on to everything you know beneath the surface. It's like what Maya Angelou did. She could move between poetry and public appearances, media interviews and deep philosophy without ever losing her integrity. Or how Leonardo da Vinci spent years painting for royal patrons while secretly designing machines and writing notebooks full of scientific ideas no one would understand for centuries. They didn't suppress their depth, they just timed it. That's emotional fluency, knowing when to speak and when to listen, when to go deep and when to keep it light. It's also about understanding incentives. Most group settings, offices, parties, social media, aren't designed for depth. They're designed for cohesion. And deep ideas often disrupt cohesion, not because they're wrong, but because they force people to reevaluate. So instead of resenting that, work around it. Save your best insights for the places that can hold them. And when you do speak up in shallow waters, frame your insight in a way that gently guides, not overwhelms. For example, instead of saying, "This whole corporate system is spiritually bankrupt," try asking, "Do you ever feel like we spend more time optimizing work than questioning why we're doing it in the first place?" Same thought, different delivery, less resistance, more impact. And remember, silence is a tool too. Sometimes the smartest person in the room is the one who doesn't jump into every argument. That quiet confidence, that's depth under control. Neuroscience even supports this. Emotional intelligence isn't just about empathy. It's about regulating your own impulses so you know when your depth will be received and when it won't. It's knowing that being right isn't the same as being effective. So the goal isn't to hide who you are. It's to move through the world like someone who understands it. Observe more. Speak with precision. Play the surface when you need to, but live from the depth. That's how you survive the shallow without becoming it. If this message hit home for you, if you've ever felt like your thoughts were too heavy for the room, or like you're speaking a different language in a world that runs on autopilot, don't just sit with that feeling. Drop a comment below and tell your story. What have you experienced as a deep thinker in a surface-level world? Where have you struggled? What have you learned? Your comment might be exactly what someone else needs to read to feel a little less alone today. This channel isn't just about ideas. It's about building a space where people like you can actually connect. Make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching.